All right.
All right.
I think we're good, John.
Hello and welcome back to the Rossi Brothers Sports Podcast. My name is John, joined as always by my brother Adam. And today we're joined by a special guest, one Mr. Richard Bolton. Um, Richard Bolton was born and raised in the UK, where he played football from a young age and played every year at Oxford High School. At the age of 20, he went to Liverpool for a trial and subsequently played on their under 21 and under 23 teams while attending school at the same time. After moving across the pond to the Pittsburgh area, he coached continuously from 1979 to 1993 at the high school and college levels, coaching both boys and girls. He returned to the pitch in 2010 to coach for 6 more years as a high school assistant. A true master on the pitch and a great ambassador and friend off, it is a distinct pleasure to welcome Richard Bolton to the Rossi Brothers Sports Podcast. Yeah, so we're excited to have you, Richard. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think this will be fun. Like you say, just to start us off, could you kind of tell us a little bit about how you started playing football?
Yeah. Under sixes. I've got a bit of a sore throat, so edit all this out when I sound grumbly or whatever. But under sixes, progressed through under 19s, and played for Oxford Boys, which was under the umbrella of Oxford United. That I think they play in the third tier now, maybe fourth tier, and then got an opportunity to get a trial with Liverpool. Went up, education at the same time, wasn't getting a lot of playing time, and farmed out to South Liverpool. I think they're no longer in existence. And they played at that time in the Northern Premier League. So it was to try and get match experience. You don't want to be on the training field all the time because you want to play. And so then that happened through until 1974, and I was cut and came back home. So 1974, came home, that was in May, didn't have a job until September, August. And my father felt it would be a good idea for me to do something while I'm waiting for my job to start. And the idea was drive a taxi. So yeah, so that's what I did. And I picked up Pam in the end of May, beginning of June of 74. And 17 days later asked her to marry me. So I picked her up in the cab.
That's amazing.
She had tonsillitis, took her home. She had dinner with me, and 17 days later, my birthday, June 27th, asked her to marry me, and she said she would. And got married December 21st of 74. We then moved back to the UK, living in Oxford. The two boys were born over there, Matthew and Jonathan, and wasn't involved in soccer at all then, just escaping for a while. I needed to work. Got a job at the Nuffield Orthopedic, and Pam said to me one evening, we really need to decide what you're going to do. And we looked at teeth and we looked at feet. And it wasn't a big deal. It was easy to get in. I fairly decent background. When I first came out of high school, actually, I did a 4-year business degree while I was with Oxford. So I applied to podiatry school, got in, and I've never practiced. I'm not licensed. I'm not anything. I did it, got the certification, but have never practiced.
Okay.
Then in 78, moved across the pond here to the American side. And do you want me to just keep going? Just keep talking?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Let me ask, how old
Yeah.
were you when you said you went back home after playing for South Liverpool?
Yeah.
And then you got the taxi job, which is amazing. I've known you and Pam for a while now. I never knew that's how you met. That is such a great story.
Yeah.
But like how old were you when you went back home after playing for South Liverpool?
I was 27.
Oh
I
wow.
was 26.
Okay.
Asked Pam to marry me on my 27th birthday,
Okay.
and she was 22. We're 2 weeks apart.
Okay.
So she was born in July the 11th of 52.
Mm-hmm.
I was born June 27th of 47.
Okay. Wow.
So
So pretty much like age under 5 to 26, you were continuously playing soccer, football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Super cool.
And
Well, yeah,
work,
yeah.
you
Please
know,
continue. Love to.
playing.
Yeah.
It's a big game, and it gives us what's missed here. We get lessons. We learn creativity, we learn discipline, we learn time management, we learn all sorts of things, and we can apply those things to our lives later on in our careers, with our family, with our relationships, with our friends. And I'm giving a talk at a high school in November. And those are the points that I make. It's a motivational kind of talk, but it's built on the premise of what this game has done for us and how we can build on that. And we take these skill sets with us as we go through life. I'm doing things now at 76 that I learned when I was under 6.
Wow.
I know how,
like you said.
Yeah, literally a life lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you hold the ball? Do you pass the ball? Do you shoot? Do you who has the skill sets? We do nothing on our own. We absolutely do nothing on our own. It's all built into a team-oriented lifestyle. And if we narrow it, then we end up losing. If we expand it, we end up winning.
Quote unquote.
It's like poetic, excuse me. Yeah.
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 And you're sharing that with young high schoolers and us and the world. So thank you.
Yeah. Interesting story. The coach at York called me up, and I had coached him 36 years ago at Penn State. And he somehow got my number, gave me a call. We caught up, and all the things that I'm talking to you about right now are the things that he brought up, the life lessons that he learned from me. And now he's passing it on. You play it forward. He's now passing it on to his players. They're waiting to hear who they get in the playoffs this week. They made the playoffs. They're waiting to hear who they get. So the banquet's, I think, November 5th or something. So I haven't seen him in 36 years. So I thought it would be, yes, I said, I'll come over and I'll be a guest speaker. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
You just never know, like in any one day, any little thing you can do, you never know the impact that's going to have, that will change someone's life, or people going to remember for the rest of their lives. And
it's being unconditional. You have no strings attached. You just live your life. You do unconditional giving, and you free yourself up. People take advantage of it. You get hurt. You still move on, but you don't penalize the next person. You continue being generous and helpful and loving and kind. And life is very simple. As human beings, we screw it up. We mess it up so badly. But life really is very, very simple. And it's just being a good human being. So easy to live that way.
Enough said.
Your family does that. I'm blessed to have Tuff and Jim as friends. Pam and I loved those two, and We love your mum. I
Yes.
played,
Mhm.
gosh, this goes back to 1978, 79, 80. I played tennis against your mother.
Oh yeah,
Oh man.
My
I
ups,
never heard the story.
kick my
I
ups.
I still don't think I've actually beaten her in like an official set of tennis.
Yeah. We played once,
Um,
I think it was 6-2.
yeah, like you say, to have had the opportunity to play her then would also be amazing, at least for me
Yeah.
personally. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, everything you said is mutual, Richard. We're really lucky to have you as a friend
Yeah. Love you
as
too.
yeah,
well.
amen. As yeah, I was gonna say, speaking a little bit about then, right, like mentioning Penn State and New York, and stuff here stateside.
Yeah.
So I think where we sort of left you off a little bit was at your coming to the States.
Yeah.
Was there any particular impetus for that? Was it work or something else?
Uh, a combination. So we're living in Penn Hills, and the pharmacist at the top of the street, Statlander's Pharmacy, calls Pam's dad because that's where Pam's parents got their prescriptions filled. And can I have a word with your son-in-law? So his son was going to Central Catholic. Central Catholic were just beginning in 1981, maybe 79, 80, 81.
And this is Pittsburgh high school in Pittsburgh.
It's a private boys' school in Oakland.
Okay. Yep.
So he asked me, would I be interested in helping with the team? So I said, yeah. Didn't know it was salaried. In England, all the coaching is all done by staff members. You don't bring coaches in from the outside. So all this was very, very new to me. So I met the athletic director at Central and offered me a few $100s to coach the team from the beginning of the school year till November. Now, at Central Catholic, being private, players are coming from all over the place. So there was no association, there was no organization. It was individuals who wanted to play for the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, parents wanted their kids to have a sport. They couldn't get into any other sport. And soccer was an option. It was a brand new option. So I met with these guys. And actually, the first year I was there, Danny Marino graduated.
Wow.
So that's where he went to school and then went to Pitt. Anyway, we ended up with about a 500 record, but it was so hard to get them to pass. They wanted to carry the ball. They wanted to own the ball. They didn't understand the concept of ball movement and passing and holding and looking for opportunities. They just didn't grasp it. Great kids, loved all of them. Near the end of the season, we had a friendly against a high school in Pittsburgh called Shaler, and they had just come off of a state championship in soccer. Now, they had an association where players were being fed from under sixes, if you like, through the system and into the high school. So I met with their athletic director, and he said, we'll pay you thousands. We won't pay you hundreds, we'll pay you thousands. So I was recruited. So over to Shaler I go. It wasn't multiple thousand. It wasn't in 3,000 or 4,000 at that time. But it paid for the Christmas gifts. It helped with our finances.
Sure.
And now Shaler, the players all knew each other. They would come through the association and they knew ball management. They knew how to hold. What I had to teach them was how to move the ball into space. There's a
Hmm.
great story that I learnt in Liverpool, if I can digress for a second.
Please.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. The University of Liverpool, their Department of Mathematics, they had a PhD program, and what they wanted to find out was how long a player has the ball in a 90-minute soccer match. No substitutions. 11 players, 90 minutes. So they timed us. They had all these guys, and you play the game, and they're stop watching everything. Every player in a 90-minute game has possession of the ball less than 2 minutes. So you've got 22
You got 22
players,
minutes. Yeah.
44 minutes. Where's the ball for the other 46 minutes? The ball is either in between passes or out of bounds. So what I needed to get Americans to understand was it's what you do off the ball that's important, not what you do when you're on the ball. When you're on the ball, you're looking for your options and where are you going to pass the ball. So again, it's a game of being off the ball, finding space, creating width, stretching the other team's defense, however it works. Under 2 minutes in a 90-minute game. You don't have the ball for very, very long. So when you do, you've got to make very, very critical decisions. You got to think on your feet. That's another life lesson. You're thinking on your feet when you're playing soccer. You're going to be doing that for the rest of your lives. You're thinking, both of you are thinking on your feet when you're doing your jobs. You're making decisions. How do I do this? When do I do this? And sometimes there's not a lot of time to make that decision. You have to make it.
Yeah, well, as in soccer and life.
Shayla gave me that little bit of opportunity to let them know it's what you're doing off the ball that's important. So I think the 3 years I was there, I think maybe we lost 4 or 5 games. We would win the sections, and the best was a semi-final against North Allegheny, another very, very good program in Pittsburgh. And we were leading 2 minutes, 3 minutes to go. We were leading 2-1, and they scored twice in the last 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, gee.
And they went on to win Whitfield. They went on to win the state championship too. Wow. But I think they just, again, the draw, it's who you have to play. So I tell people it doesn't really matter what the record is of the other program. You're going to have to play them at some point. So why not play them first? But North Allegheny and Shayla had a very, very, very good program and feeding program players coming in. I think we would have done what North Allegheny had done had they not beaten us that 1 year. But,
yeah, gee, heartbreaker.
Yeah. So then, just trying to think, 1985, got an offer from Penn State McKeesport.
Okay.
And we were still living in Monroeville then, so McKeesport's not too far from Penn Hills, Monroeville, Penn Hills to McKeesport. So I went there, and it was their very first year. The head coach of Penn State main campus, his name Barr, and both of his kids were both NFL place kickers.
Oh, wow.
One played for Pittsburgh and one played for Oakland Raiders.
Cool.
But he liked what I had to offer, what I felt I could do to develop a new program, get a new program started.
Mhm.
I was only
Wow.
there a year, and I'm working at the same time, you got to remember.
Wow.
You say
I
that's like
had-
starting a program.
I was working for a drug company, and I had to go to high school games. I had to do recruiting. There was tons of speaker programs that you had to go out and do banquets or do things. And it was
Wow.
just, it was crazy.
And you had
I
kids.
resigned.
And
I
Yeah,
resigned.
exactly.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's when this guy from Yacht came in. I can't remember him. I got a team picture, and he looks a lot younger in the picture than he does now. But he found me somehow, and we talked for the first time in 36 years. Nuts.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so then, after resigning, a chap by the name of Neil Gordon, who was the athletic director of Penn Hills, and I was developing, here's another interesting story. At that time in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you got to remember that the coaches of all these under 6s, under 8s, under 10s, under 14s, under 18s, 19s, whatever, they're being coached by uneducated soccer players. It's their parents. So I developed a program where whoever knew a little bit about the game, I was coaching coaches to coach their kids, because you were going from absolutely nothing. So that was hard work too. I was doing that in the evenings. Our kids were all involved and playing too. Then from Penn Hills, I spent 2 years there, I think, and got an opportunity to go to Gateway. Gateway had better players, and I had done this coaching the coaches program in Monroeville too. So went to Gateway, and we were very successful there. We did very, very well there. No Whippeal titles, no state championships or anything. But and now we're in the middle 90s.
Okay.
And the game's developing in America. And that's what needs to happen. There needs to be progression. So now we're looking at multi-generations, maybe 2 generations now, of people knowing the game. And when they're talking to their kids, they can coach their kids, they can get their kids to play the ball the way you face. When to hold the ball, when to release the ball. So the technique and the strategies that you apply, it's a lot easier now. It was very, very difficult, late 70s, early 80s, but it's getting a lot easier now. And a lot of associations are paying coaches. They're raising the fees to join the associations, and they're now paying coaches to come in. And the coaches that are coming in, former college, former high school, doing coaching certificates and contributing to the growth of this game. Back in the 70s, 80s, America tried one time before to develop soccer in America, and it failed. It failed because America wasn't using homegrown players. They were using, Pele came over, a guy I knew, Rodney Marsh came over to try and create filled stadiums and get the game understood, move the game up. What it did, it stalled the game. And the problem was, very, very simply, they were trying to create a game using South Americans and European players. So it failed. Then they tried again with the indoor Indoors, very, very good for training, very, very good for stamina, very, very good for changing direction, short movement. But you play on 120 by 70 outside. Indoor stadiums are a little bit bigger than a basketball court. And then that's the
Different
other
game.
thing. When you think about soccer, can I keep going?
Please.
Are we doing all right?
Yeah.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, good. Let's talk a little bit about basketball, and you can edit all this out if you want. Perfectly fine.
I know basketball more than soccer, so I'm game.
Okay.
I'll have a question about this afterwards.
Let's
whenever
talk
you're done.
about basketball, American football, and baseball. It's all controlled by the coaches. So you have basketball at every level, adult level, we're talking professional level, where players are earning a damn lot of money. And the coach is running down the court as the center's banging the ball like this, and he's looking at his coach, and his coach is saying, you need to do this, 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 and this, and they're sending in signals.
Run this set play.
Let the player play. In American football,
set it up.
In American football, they're on headphones, like you are, Adam. They're and you too, John.
Yeah.
They're on headphones and taking Polaroid pictures.
Spider 2Y banana.
And telling adult
Spider 2Y
men,
banana.
telling adult men whether to throw the ball or run the ball. Again, let the player, he's an adult, let the player. And baseball drives me absolutely nuts because you've got adult grandfathers dressed up in pajamas, looking just like the players, standing around the bases, doing this. They're hitting themselves on the head and they're doing this. Let the pitcher throw the ball. Let the hitter hit the ball. Anyway, back to soccer. There's nothing that a coach can do on game day. Strategically, maybe. Encourage players because of the substitutions. But you let the player play the game. There's nothing a coach can do in soccer. It's all done on the practice fields. And I've done this from under 6 to now.
That's an interesting
That's a concept you can understand.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective because I have, I would say I had an earlier introduction and experience in basketball, baseball, football than soccer. And like now I just came back from watching the Kansas City Currents last match of the year. And I think having kind of taken for granted that coaching approach of like in-game adjustments in those other sports, I definitely find myself applying that to soccer, and sometimes out of frustration, like, well, why aren't we doing this? And you give me a new perspective to think about that now. But it's not like you said, it's not like there is no coaching. It's just less of it maybe is done during the match.
In soccer, it's done on the training field. Your free kick situations, your corner kicks. You're having people running into space. You're hitting the ball to a very specific point. When you watch the Premier League, it's not accidental where the ball's going. It's all very, very deliberate. I need a drink.
Yeah, please.
Certainly, yeah.
So the way the ball's knocked around, it's building up to an end result. And the end result is creating an opportunity on your opponent's goal. So I'm going to make a contradiction, and then you'll understand it after I've said it.
Okay.
I think that if you're in the penalty area and the ball is coming through, you get a split second to hammer the ball. And I would rather an offensive player hit the corner flag than get caught in possession. That's one position I'm taking. The other position.
Wait. I'm not sure. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to follow. So you have a split second to hit the ball if the ball's like played in on a cross.
Yeah.
And you're saying you'd rather have the player
go for it.
Okay.
Try to take a shot and miss really badly than
Yeah.
to
Then not-
hesitate and lose the ball without even
Yeah.
getting
Gotcha.
the
Once in a while, they're going to go in the back
Uh-huh.
of the net.
Mhm. Okay. I
Now
gotcha.
here's my contradiction part.
Mhm.
I coach for players to hit the target. I don't want players to miss the target. I want the goalkeeper to make the stop, because if the goalkeeper doesn't make the stop, you've scored a goal.
Mhm.
So it's two finite positions, but you want forwards to take a shot, even if they miss, and not be worried about their teammates or the coaching staff be angry or why did you do that? No, it's very, very quick in the penalty area. Defenders are looking to get a piece of the ball. Doesn't matter as a defender, and I played in midfield, but as a defender, it doesn't matter where the ball goes. You want height and you want distance. You want to get it out so that you can bring your back line up with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
now,
it's.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, for in terms of statistics now, that I think soccer statistics have recently been increasing in like usage of stuff, but like for defenders, for example, right, it's like aerial duels, I think is something they use, of like if you win a header versus another player, or just like clearances, you're just like kicking the ball out, versus right, like you're talking about if you're an attacker, and you have like shots versus shots on goal being the target, exactly like you're saying, matters more than just clearing the ball.
Much easier. It's much easier to defend, John. It's much easier to get a piece of the ball, height and distance, and get it out. It's very, very precise when you're trying to get a shot on goal. And it happens very, very quickly. And if, as a defender, and the ball's at your feet, I'm looking to smother that. So the longer you hold it, the better chance. That's why you see goalkeepers rushing out to attackers' feet. You're decreasing the angle that the forward has in terms of getting a shot on target. So you want to create the opportunity and you want the shot on goal. I'm fine with the goalkeeper making the save. But I'm telling you, if I create more opportunities on my opponent's goal, law of averages is telling me I've got a damn good chance of winning the game. So don't get caught in possession. Don't get caught on the ball.
Man, I wish I had this recorded like 3 hours ago, because I was watching this game and one of my friends was talking about just trying to we were arguing about whether it's better to just like take a shot versus kind of like hold for like a perfect situation setup thing. And I was of the opinion like just take a shot, like get balls towards the net. That's never a bad thing. So I feel a little bit vindicated because of what you just said. But you added the asterisk there, like on target. Because part of her argument was like, well, yeah, if it's not a good shot, you might not have a good chance of getting on target. So,
and you've also got to be aware of your supporting players, the space that they're finding. For sure. That's why you see balls played through to the end line.
Right.
And someone's coming around, going to knock the ball back into the middle, into the danger part.
Right.
And you want the ball played somewhere between the 6-yard box and the penalty spot. At every level, goalkeepers don't know whether to come or whether to stay. And if you can create that indecision with a goalkeeper, you're creating an opportunity. Watch, there's no Premier games, I think, start next week. Just watch how balls are played. They're not always played perfectly, but they're looking to give the receiving player a better opportunity than the goalkeeper or the defender. Doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But
They say, well, you're talking.
the game is happening and it's changing. Possession is changing all the time.
Yeah. In the spirit, if I may, real quick, in the spirit of like you mentioning such a team sport, one of those life lessons, and then also in the spirit of comparing soccer to other sports, I was also talking to one of my friends after yesterday. I gave up a 70-yard touchdown in flag football, and was feeling pretty crappy because I was like, that was 100% me. Like I man coverage, I gave up a play, and I was realizing like, oh yeah, soccer compared to other sports, it's very rare that there's a play and you're like, oh, that was like clearly one person that gave that up. Whereas in like football, like again, man coverage, it's like one-on-one battles. Baseball, pitcher versus batter. In the NBA, it's almost entirely man-to-man defense. So there's a lot of one-on-one matchups. Whereas in soccer, it's like you almost never see a one-on-one matchup. It's such a team game in that respect.
Something I couldn't get young players to grasp. Let's use fullbacks as the example for this. If the wide players or a wide player is very, very quick, very fast, and the fullback on that side cannot keep up with the pace or is being beaten, I would have the wide fullbacks change position. Had nothing to do whether you're right-footed or left-footed. If the matchup isn't working and the coach sees it, this is one of those small nitty-picky things that maybe a coach can have on game day. We've got a speedster against us and you're being beaten. We've got to change that dynamic because the other coach is saying, let's threaten that part of the park more often. Let's get the ball out to our left side or our right side, wherever it is. You've got to change that. And then I would have the fullbacks change position and see if that one-on-one, going back to your football analogy, maybe that one-on-one is changed a little bit.
So there's some coaching you do on match day.
If you're following.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's super interesting. Also, the one thing you're talking a little bit ago about, like, having just the split moments essentially. I don't know who it was attributed to, but I feel like I heard a quote not too long ago. I don't think the quote was actually given. I heard it not too long ago. Talking about like some player talking about how a professional player, like, they don't actually like think when they're on the ball. Like when they know the ball is coming to them, they have to more or less make a decision before the ball gets there of what they want to do with it, because there's so little time of that. And that's like, again, also sort of going back to what you're talking about the coaching mostly being on the training field of, if you train a lot of these scenarios over and over, you kind of learn that in advance.
At the very highest level, let's use the Premier League in England as an example. When that ball is being played from one side of the pitch to the other, the receiving player knows if there's no pressure from the player that's making the pass, that ball is going to come right down on my left foot, right down on my right foot, right down on my thigh.
Yeah, which is astounding to watch.
Yeah.
As a side note.
It doesn't happen accidentally. This is all happening when nobody's there. People look at and they say, gosh, good pass, but it's not accidental. It's all deliberate.
A lot of training.
Yeah. Well, like I say, speaking of the English Premier League,
Yeah.
If you wanna, if we can get into a little bit. So as you mentioned, there are not any games as at the moment that we're recording this. It's the international break, but
Yeah.
a week from now, I guess they'll be picking up again. Yeah, so we're just like a month or two into the season, but we asked you beforehand, and we're hoping to do a little bit of an EPL preview with you.
Yeah. I'm not an analyst, but I will be tonight.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, you're much more informed, I think, than an average observer of the game.
Okay.
So just asking some
Definitely,
questions.
I won't speak for John, but definitely know a heck of a lot more than I do about this.
Yeah,
I'll take that as a compliment.
it's
That's how it
meant
was
to be
meant to be
one, right?
taken.
Yeah, exactly. But so given your history with Liverpool,
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe we could start talking about Liverpool a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I was gonna say, like, up until, so side note for people, they're currently fourth in the table as of the break.
Yeah. Third or fourth.
Yeah, but right near the top of everything. I think at the end of last season they went like 14 or 15, 16 games unbeaten.
Yeah.
Up until a couple weekends ago in somewhat controversial fashion. So as it, my first thought is like, are they for real this year? What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they are. I think you every fan across the British Isles sees Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, and then the three London teams, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
How do you break, as a fan with another team, how do you break into that? I'm not convinced Manchester City will win the league.
Okay.
I think Liverpool have a shot. I think Tottenham have a shot. And I think that Arsenal are there. So
Mm-hmm.
there's your top four. Now, who can break into that top four? I think it will not be Chelsea or Manchester United. So now
Doesn't look like it so far.
Newcastle did great last year, got into the
Mm-hmm.
top four. First time, I think, I don't know, 20, 25 years, long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Aston Villa has a shot. They're playing very, very well.
Yeah.
These better teams have some individual superstars, and that can work against you. I would rather have a solid 11 or a solid 18, as the squads are now. I would rather have a solid team than having 4 or 5 all-stars that want the ball, that want to score. That it doesn't always work, and I think that will work against Manchester City this year. They got a great centre forward, Haaland, scoring goals.
Insane.
Haven't done so the last 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
I think Aston Villa, and again, I think Newcastle, Brighton might surprise us. So there are 1 or 2 others that, given the right outcomes and the way that the scheduling is all done, somebody else could take a top 4 spot outside of Liverpool and the Manchesters and the London teams. I think there could be a surprise. West Ham might have a good year too.
Yeah.
For this segment, I'm going to take the role of like that guy that just wants to like be part of the conversation, like doesn't really know anything, so ask like completely obvious question. So maybe some of our listeners, like, I don't know, my parents might not, maybe they're thinking the same thing, so I'm just gonna like try to play that role. But like, how many teams are there in the English Premier League
20.
in the first place?
20.
20,
Yes.
okay. And then
And-
how many get relegated?
3.
Okay.
Yeah. And for context also, for people who don't know, as Richard was alluding to, Manchester City, they've won the league now 3 years in a row.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And last year they won the treble, which is to say that they won the Premier League, but they also won the
FA Cup.
European Champions League.
Yeah.
Yes, and the FA
And the
Cup.
League Cup. Yeah.
So they're coming into this season, they were sort of the presumed favorites,
Agreed.
for somewhat obvious reasons, I guess. Yeah, and up until the past couple weeks, they had won every game.
Okay, wow.
But they're no longer at the top of the table.
Yeah, and they've lost 2 in the last 3, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So as you're saying, Richard, it's I was, initially when I wrote these questions and that sent them to you, I was like, well, we can ask about the top 4. Like, I don't even know if it's worth asking about who's going to win the league, but it's a long season, I suppose, and there's a lot to learn for me, still being a relatively newer fan, I suppose.
That's another question I had. You meant
there's 6 or 7 teams that just want to survive.
Mhm.
They just want to they want to play at that level next year.
Right, remain in the top 20.
Yeah, or the top 15, top
Oh, right.
17.
Yeah, so top
They're
17.
not
I
going
got you.
down.
Yep.
Right. How many matches are played in a season?
Well, everybody plays everybody home and away.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 38 total.
36,
That's right.
38.
So there's
Yeah.
20 and so one team is playing 19 other clubs.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
it's 30.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
anything
a full season.
Yeah, anything can happen
Mhm.
on any given day. I going back to the FA Cup's a good example of this. Play one game and everybody's name goes into the hat, and the better teams are drawn against lower division teams. So upsets are happening all the time, and it's a one-off. Let's look at your American sports again. How strong are you? I want to set up something.
Like physically or
Yeah,
and what?
yeah. Do you think you're
Not
stronger? Do you think you're stronger than me? Do you think one of you is stronger than me?
I'd go with no.
It depends on context.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Like,
all
and the
right.
situation.
So what about, let's put your dad on the spot then. Is he stronger than me? Somebody say yes.
Sure.
Let's say
Yeah.
that your dad.
Adam, you've got some muscle. You could be. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to arm wrestle.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm the weaker. Your dad's the stronger. If we arm wrestle just one time, he may slip. He may not quite be ready, and I can beat him. If I arm wrestle your dad 5 times or 7 times, he's going to beat me 3-1, 5-1, 7-1. With American sports, it's done deliberately to fill stadiums. I understand that. But what it's also done for is to give the best team the chance to win. So if you've got 2 baseball teams and one's just struggled to get into the playoffs and the other one is expected to win the World Series, football, this doesn't count. It's a one game of, I understand that.
Right.
But they still load the best teams up to play the weakest teams. If you look at basketball and ice hockey and baseball, the best team ends up winning. because it's not a one-off. The games in America are engineered to get the two best teams in the country to play each other in a final. In soccer, doesn't happen. And anything, I've played in matches where we at schoolboy level, semi-pro level, where absolutely categorically we're the best team going into a tournament or going into a league game. Categorically. Every way you measure the team's performance, our team has the edge in every area. Okay?
Good feeling.
I played in those games where we've lost the game 1-0. Their goalkeeper has had a blinder. He's saved everything that's come. They've had one breakaway and scored a goal from a breakaway. We lose 1-0. I've also been on the other side where we've been absolutely the weakest team on the park, and we've had that one opportunity and scored. So if you play a one-off, it evens the playing field. The FA Cup, when they're not showing any on American television,
no,
but you could have say something stupid here so you can relate. You could have Manchester United playing Frostburg at Frostburg.
Wow.
And Manchester have to travel to these part-timers on a small, uneven pitch. And the chance of Frostburg winning is one chance on goal, and they get it. And Manchester hits the woodwork. The goalkeeper's making saves. Defenders are clearing the ball off the goal line. So you play multiple games. Manchester's going to come in. Frostburg wins the first game. Manchester's going to play the next 5 and kick their asses.
I'd say maybe it's like almost analogous to right, talking about basketball, maybe like the NBA championships, like generally, right, like you're saying, like sometimes you'll still see upsets, but I think that comparing that to the NCAA tournament where you play a single game against an opponent, you
It's
see
the
much
greatest
more
tournament
wild
in America. I love that.
you see much more wild upsets in the NCAA tournament than you do
For sure.
in like the NBA finals, for example.
I love that tournament. I watch that tournament.
I think say, man, the FA Cup is also, I think I feel like we could talk about that for a while because it is.
Yeah, they're going through the preliminary rounds right now of the FA Cup.
Yeah.
How many teams are in the FA Cup?
The first round proper is when the 4th division and the 3rd division teams come in. And you're going to get upsets. Always happens. And it's great for football. It's just great for the sport. It's great for the game. It's marvelous.
Am I correct? So just to clarify here, out of curiosity, I thought I read that essentially like more or less any just like club team can sign up and play in like very early qualifying rounds of the FA Cup. Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Like the actual number of teams that participate in qualifying is usually like thousands. Before it ends up getting to what you're saying, like the first round proper.
Oh, and now you're going into the first round proper. Maybe you'll have 40 of these teams coming in.
Did you ever play in the FA Cup, Richard?
No.
Okay. Wow.
It's interesting. Yeah, talking about kind of these one-off, the whole like arm wrestle concept, like you mentioned. But I recall a very early Rossi Brothers Sports podcast episode before we were really doing guests, and it was just John and I talking about Bundesliga because it was like one of the first leagues to start playing matches again. And we were talking about how the champion of Bundesliga, and I assume my understanding is that's the same as the EPL and a lot of these European football leagues, is you don't have a playoff. It's just whatever team is at the top of the table at the end wins the championship. And to me, that's like the ultimate like kind of not having an upset, because it's like you don't have any playoff. You're just just crowning whoever is the best over 38 games or whatever it was. And it was interesting because John and I think from that conversation were kind of talking about the positive aspects of that compared to, you look at Major League Baseball or like the NBA now has like this weird last 4 teams play like a playoff before the playoff. It's like this ever expanding playoff thing. And at a certain point, it's like, well, how much does the regular season really matter then? Because it's almost like you're playing it takes emphasis off the regular season games. So I don't know, just another perspective of
it is. Let me try and give you another perspective. If you look at England will go into Rhode Island. So let's make a comparison and let's call America by their 50 states and let's call Europe by their individual countries.
Okay.
It's been discussed, how could you operate I'm struggling to find how to describe. The UK from one end to the other, you can drive in 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
You can be anywhere in England and get to the ocean in an hour.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter where you are, you can get to other teams. England teams are really not, some of them are, but England teams are not flying to their weekend game. They're either going on a train or they're going in a bus. Now,
that's awesome.
You couldn't have the Premier League set up in America and have Los Angeles play the New York Red Bulls in a league game. Right. You're going through all these time zones and they're going to play 90 minutes and the game is over. So it will never happen. And that's why they have Eastern Conference, Western Conference, to try to whittle it down, to then have a playoff and then have the best from those conferences play each other in a final. But when you're in France, Germany, Spain, Italy, England, doesn't matter, everything's so condensed that these teams can all play each other and be home in their own bed that same night. I have a great story for you. I was in high school. I was 16.
Okay.
And my mum came to all my games. And I was playing for Oxford Boys. And there's a tournament in England called the English Schoolboys Trophy. Okay. So you have all different schools playing each other. Wasn't a big game, but Oxford, kind of south of the Midlands, north of the southern part, just outside of London, we were playing a school near Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Newcastle called Chesterley Street. So a 4-hour drive.
More northern, yeah. Okay.
4-hour drive. So my father at that time was in Singapore. So I left for the game. I knew he wasn't going to be there. And I played the game. I think you have a better dad than the dad that I'm going to explain with this example. We won the game. I come back on the team bus. I'm coming home. The lights in my home is all lit. I go in. My mum's in the kitchen, and so too is my dad. So so I said, were you at the game? And he said, yes. I said, why didn't you tell me? And he said, you didn't need to know. I was so far away. I may not have made the game. and then you would have been disappointed. You would have been looking for me. It would have been ridiculous. Most importantly, he said, my being there or not shouldn't have made any difference at all. It's not going to change how you play the game. So he was there when I got back to the house. He was at the game in Chesterley Street.
Well,
I had no idea he was going to be there.
I mean, you make him sound like a pretty cool dad in that story.
It
sure.
disturbed me when I look back. Why not say, I'm going to try there. I'm going to try and get there if I can. But he was coming not quite halfway around the world, but he was coming from a long way away. But he made it work.
He has more or less, right? Yeah.
And he didn't want me to be thinking, is he here? Is he here? Where could he be sitting or whatever it is? Just and that's how and Pam knew my dad. My mum had deceased, but Pam knew my dad, and very analytical engineer, physicist, and just very, very different.
Yeah.
I could do anything I wanted to do. I was an only child. I could do anything I wanted to do. I just had to commit to doing it for an entire year, and then I could drop it. That isn't happening in today's society, I think. I'll support you if you whatever it is you want to do. So with our kids, Pam and I discussed it when they were growing up. It was one season, but you have to complete the season.
Yeah.
And then you can drop.
Make commitments and follow through your commitment. I wonder how much of that is due to like first word that comes to mind is smartphone, but also like the internet writ large, and I don't know, just I think of like Amazon Prime and just these like instantaneous like
people talk about like shorter attention spans.
Yeah, for sure.
Being a thing.
And yeah, it's like, okay, well, just swipe on to the next, it's like
and that happens. Oh, I don't like this, so I'm not going to do it anymore.
Right.
But why isn't the child or the adult for that matter held accountable? Why isn't somebody saying, you wanted to do this, you're gonna do it? Doesn't happen today. Maybe it does in some families. You're an exception. You have a fabulous family. I love all of you. So, and it extends. It goes to all the Farinellis. I don't know a lot of the Rosettis, but the Farinelli it's a crazy group of people.
Makes it sound pretty good. I don't know.
You agree?
I think they're great.
I can't complain about our family. I do. Is it just to direct the conversation to football for one other question that I'm personally very interested in?
Yeah.
Which is, so again, for a little bit of context for people who don't know, Everton is the other like biggest club in Liverpool for sure. In the city of Liverpool.
You can finish your thought, but let me say my thought. The campus of Frostburg. If you go to the two outside boundaries, would you say a mile, 2 miles, mile and a half?
Probably about a mile.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit more.
Everton,
less than 2.
Everton is on this side. Liverpool's on this side. You can throw a cricket ball. You can throw a baseball from one stadium to the other.
That's how close they are.
Yeah, you can walk.
Okay.
And there's Evertonians who support Everton, and then the Liverpudlians who support Liverpool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I say that's super cool.
London teams. There's so many London teams, and they're all very, very close.
Yeah. So
sorry.
Yeah. So that plays into the question I want to ask though, which is right. So Everton in the past 2 or 3 years have been very much in the relegation battle.
Yeah.
Last year they finished 17th. So that's the very last survival spot.
It is. Yeah.
And so I'm extremely curious because as growing up as an American football fan, and liking college football, West Virginia, their main rivals, Pitt, which you'd be pretty familiar with, play each other every year, really like hate each other. I think maybe a college football rivalry is probably the closest comparison to like a derby in the UK.
Yeah.
But right, in 2012, 2013 was the last time when you have this conference realignment and Pitt and West Virginia stop playing each other. And like I, for one, am like very upset about that.
Yeah.
Because like even though we hate each other, right, it's like fun to play and you really like beating the other teams. It's really fun to get to play them if you win, right? And so I'm curious if the dynamic is similar, if it's different between like a Liverpool and an Everton. Like if Everton were to actually finish, 18th or 19th and go down, they're playing in the championship next year. Would that be kind of bittersweet to not have, your 2 games against Everton during the regular season? Or would it just be kind of like enjoyable to watch them because they're your rivals, watch them go down essentially?
Watch them suffer.
Because that's it's a similar dynamic, but I think it's not quite the same dynamic as like what we're used to as Americans.
Yeah. I played against Everton under 21s, under 23s, and there was a rivalry. But as a player, it was, I think, when I look back, it's just the next game on the schedule. It's just the next game that you have to play. I thought you were going to ask, who do I think's going down this year?
I'm also curious, if you have a prediction for that.
I'm praying that Luton can stay up, even
Me too.
Even if they're 17th.
Exactly.
I want them. I played on that ground.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
And
the Kenilworth Road.
Yeah, and can you imagine terraced homes in America? They're all joined,
like brownstones, sort of.
Have you ever been to Pittsburgh? Have you ever seen Homewood? All the houses.
I'm not familiar with that neighborhood.
Low income. It's Philadelphia, where the low income areas. There's homes surrounding this. That they're building a new stadium for them, but I think it holds maybe 17,000, 18,000, but it's all private homes, and people will go
like
up
right up against the back of the stadium.
Yeah.
And
you can be in a bedroom looking down on the pitch. You don't have to buy a ticket and go in because you're high enough to see. But I want Luton to stay up. Who do I think's going down? 2 that came up from last year. I think Burnley has a shot to go down. Sheffield United has a shot to go down. Bournemouth, maybe Wolves. So I think you're going to be looking at maybe 5-6 teams that, based on who they play at the end of the year, could keep them up or put them down.
So you think Everton's going to stay up?
No, I think they'll go down.
I think they go down.
You think that? Okay.
Yeah. And you're not brokenhearted over that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
That's fair. Yeah. I also, for what
my
it's worth,
landlady that I had in Liverpool, her husband's brother, that's how I ended up living with them. Her husband's brother had played for Liverpool.
Wow.
Like back in the 30s.
Oh, wow.
So long time ago. But you have a bias, a prejudice, whatever you want to call it, towards certain teams. I mean, Bournemouth is another club that I think only, I played there too. There's maybe only 12,000 can get into their stadium. They're looking to expand, or the biggest talking point in England right now is Wrexham. Have you been following Wrexham? They have a couple of American superstar actors that are giving money.
There are probably multiple Premier League teams that Americans would not have heard of who would have still heard of Wrexham because of the like TV
That
show and
show.
everything
Yeah,
surrounding it. Yeah.
I heard about that.
Yeah. And they're in Wales. So
Right.
Wales have Wrexham in the Football League. They have Cardiff and Swansea.
I
Cardiff
say
and
Swansea's in Wales.
Swansea
Okay.
have been up and down, Premier and Championship.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
Wales is a small little country too.
Yeah.
But
John.
no, the biggest point is I'd love Luton to be able to escape somehow and
Yeah.
maybe have an easier schedule going into the end and somehow getting out. And
I hope so. They're top of my list for everything you just listed, but then
Yeah.
also it came up. I don't know exactly what their ownership structure is, but when I only like about a year ago started really following the Premier League and right, professional European football essentially. I like did some quick Googling of like community owned teams because that's pretty much non-existent in like American professional sports, save for the Green Bay Packers. But that's like super cool. I like that concept a lot. I think it's very interesting. And they came up on that list. I think they're partially owned and controlled by like their fan community, which is just something that's, I don't know, super cool. There are one or two other teams in the like second, third, and fourth tiers of the English football that are also like that. But I just personally, I'm like, oh, that's super cool. So that's an additional reason why I really hope they stay up, is like having that fan control, like the team relationship aspect of that.
And a single player in the top 6 that we talked about earlier, a single player earns more money than the entire team at Luton or at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Luton's got my fanship.
The Hatters.
The Hatters. Go Hatters. I'm mad for the Hatters.
You know what a hatter is?
Manufacturer of hats?
Yeah, it's a boating hat.
Okay.
A brimmed straw.
I say it's like a straw or like
yeah,
kind of woven kind of.
Yeah, I can
say
it.
Their
Joe Wombold has one.
Their crest has the little like hat, right? Like you're talking about, the light hat, and then it has the sort of like black stripe around
like band
midsection.
Ribbon.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I think we're about out of time here. Appreciate all your all you shared with us.
What is the time,
Richard? It's about 1:15. But if you have one more minute to share, John, you had talked a little bit about VAR, and I was personally curious about that question, and to get Richard's take on that. I think you could ask the question better than I could, John.
Yeah. So again, for people who aren't aware, VAR stands for Video Assistant Referee, which has been implemented within the past 10 years. I don't know exactly when they've added different levels of VAR, but it's right. Again, American sports fans very familiar with video review. That's what this is. This is just the name for that in soccer. So I guess, I don't know, at least the question that we wrote down was sort of like generally, how do you feel about it? But like, given the sort of controversy surrounding it, I would say particularly there has been some controversy around offsides recently. I would say, I think
Liverpool scored a goal the week before last, and the guy was onside. Luis Diaz, I think.
Diaz, yeah. I say that was particularly wild.
Yeah.
I was also very curious about the handball calls, because there have been a lot of, I think maybe the most ambiguous call that there is right now would be handballs in the box with lead to a PK, which they look at on video review, and some of them are decided as handballs, some of them not. Can be like, it's just very controversial as a fan. But all that leading into my general question of like, if there were tweaks or changes you could make to the current VAR system, how would you, personally, Richard, how would you change that to try to improve it?
You've got to understand the rules of the game. A handball is very simply defined. It's my bringing my arm, my hand to the ball. If you shoot the ball at 60 miles an hour and it hits my elbow, that is not handball. They've got to go back to the basic rule of a handball or of an offside. I mean, I'm fine with all the lines and I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to make the right call. And if you delay, that's the other thing that this is happening. Games are being extended 10, 12 minutes here, and goals are being scored in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Not good for the game. And plus, if you've been running for 90 minutes or a 45-minute half, and you've got to wait for somebody to look at a video, that can take the edge off one team and give it to another. You can stop a team's momentum by stopping play for 10 minutes. Used to happen in injuries a lot. And I can work with injuries. Someone gets hurt, you've got to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the head injuries now, the protocols that are all set up for that, wasn't non-existent when I played. But the point is, you can take away a team's opportunity by watching a video or somebody getting hurt. So I can criticize on both sides. Is it good for the game? Somebody's decided that it is, and I've got to go with it, and I'll accept it. But you've got to get it right. And if it means delaying it a little bit more, the Diaz offside was ridiculous, and it never came back to the referee on the field.
Yeah, like you say, something like that is more shocking to me. That feels almost more equivalent to just a wrong offsides call that you would have gotten before the system was set in place.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's just like pure human error. That
I played
mm-hmm.
with human error.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived with referee and linesman's decisions. That was the culture that I was brought up on.
Mm-hmm.
I can live with that. I can play with that. But they've implemented this new system, and I think you've got to go with it. It's angering managers, it's angering players, and it's changing results. It's changing scores. If it was just down to human error, people would just keep playing. It was a goal. Let's kick off. Let's start again.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate what you said about the spirit of the rule, or like the original rule for a handball and like an offsides. I'm thinking about watching the U.S. men's team last year play Iran in the game they needed to win to advance to the knockout stage around of 16. And the U.S. was up 1-0, but right before halftime, they scored another goal to go up 2-0, and it was called back because of offsides. And I think they VAR'd it. I'm sure they did, because they kept showing all these next level images of like this plane, and like, oh, your like nose is like a tip of your nose is breaking through the plane, therefore it's offsides. And I was thinking, like, this seems ridiculous. Like, first of all, no, maybe I'm a little biased. I don't see how any of those images were offsides. But then two, it's like, okay, if we're down to this little, like, if my fingernail is beyond your lace of your shoe, like, is that really what that rule is supposed to be there for? Like, I kind of don't think so.
Yeah, like one player's shoulder is like just 6 inches past the other player, and therefore it's offsides. But you're not actually gaining any advantage from the positioning. Yeah.
Anyway. Well, thank you for sharing that, Richard.
I'd be curious if there are rule changes around that in the future, because it is. I think there have been some not very seriously taken, but some people have proposed it's like from the back of the attacking player or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if you could avoid having that really nitpicking kind of situation one way or the other, but
And I could get a nudge from you defensively or offensively that pushes me or you offside.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to stay onside, but I get a little nudge. It's not deliberate, but it pushes me over that line. And now if a goal's scored, I'm offside.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another
or you see
interesting.
defenders. There was one play not too long ago that I saw a defender like literally at the last second, like lurching backwards,
Yeah.
and they're like making this really awkward thing, which, you know, like an offside trap, I guess, is an accepted part of the game. But just seeing like in that split second, and then seeing like going down to right, the timing of when they did that was just perfect for when the attacker played the ball and all that stuff. So
Yeah. And
it's very interesting.
And now defenders are putting their hands behind their backs.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have a good center of gravity. I can balance far better if my arms are out here than I can if I'm like this.
Yeah.
Right.
I have no center of gravity. If you can push me over if I'm standing with my hands behind my back.
Right. That just occurred to me like last week, because I watched the current here in NWSL, and players do that all the time, and I always was like, why are they doing that? Is that just like what's in right now? Like, it looks cool to put your hands behind your back in the box, and then I realized, oh, duh, they're trying not to get a handball.
Right. And a player
exactly.
isn't looking deliberately to kick the ball onto a defender's arms.
Yeah.
And the rule states, because I did some refereeing too, the rule states it's the player's arm, hand coming to the ball, not the ball coming to the hand. Very, very simple.
Cool.
Apply it the way that it should be applied. The other thing is in a soccer ground, the ball is always in play when it's on the line. All your American games will use American football. If it's on the line, it's out of play. It's either out of bounds or you've scored a touchdown.
Right.
Just another oddity.
Yeah.
It's more like tennis in that sense.
And
any part of the ball on any part of the line.
And the clock runs backwards, and soccer runs forwards. I mean, America changes everything. They're going to create something, and the other.
We just got to be contrarians, you know.
Yeah. Baseball in England is called rounders. Basketball in England is called netball, and girls play it.
As they should.
They now have men's leagues, but it's
there you go.
It's strange. This has been a pleasure.
This has been great, Richard. We wanted to so to wrap up the podcast, we usually ask our guests the same question, and you kind of touched on this a little bit already, I think. But I'll give you one opportunity to kind of sum it up if you want to. So we'd like to ask everyone, in your opinion, why are sports important?
It allows a human being to have more dimension to their lives. In athletics has given me everything I've done in my professional life, my family life, and my friends. It's all the things I've learned from discipline, time management, decision-making, discipline. And sport gives you that. Any sport will give you those things. Very, very hard to be an athlete and an academic. And the trade-off is, at the end of the day, when you're not playing anymore, you have all these gifts that you've had playing whatever game it is, and now you're applying them to your life. And if you're smart, you'll understand that. And that when I do these talks, that's the premise of my talk. You're learning things today in high school, you're learning things today that you'll be doing 50, 60 years from now. Very simple.
those students are lucky to hear you talk next month, and I just appreciate you sharing that with all the people that you do, including us, this last hour. So it's been so fun. But
Good.
Yeah,
I've
thank you so
enjoyed
much.
it. Yeah.
Super cool. I hope to get you on again sometime. But until then, from the Rockies of Colorado to the banks of the Missouri, thanks to all our listeners from points in between and not in between. Until next time, he's John and I'm Adam. Stay classy, Frostburg.